My name is Alex, and I'm Greek Orthodox.
My name is Tim, and I am Greek Orthodox.
My name is Nick, and I'm Greek Orthodox.
When I was young, I didn't find church particularly interesting, as most kids probably don't. But as I progressed through college, I began to become more disillusioned with the way the world was becoming, and I was searching to get that spiritual part of my life back. And so that's when I started taking my faith seriously again. I actually had never heard of the Orthodox Church until I saw a meme on the internet, funnily enough. It was an article that said, as the world progresses, the Orthodox Church stays in the Dark Ages. And then there was a happy-looking Orthodox priest or monk next to it because, he approved of that article. And so I was like, what even is the Orthodox Church? I've never even heard of that.
Susan and I converted together. We came here together. We came across the street from a Baptist church here together in the same day. My background being Catholic and hers Baptist was totally different, but we were both looking for that same depth of experience that we hadn't had before. And both of us were talking one day and said, we're just not fulfilled. This isn't, something doesn't feel right in terms of our Christianity and our spirituality. I happened to meet a monk from Mount Athos after that. He came to the United States to do some work, happened to come to Nashville, and I happened to be invited to breakfast with him, a guy named Father Andrew. And Andrew and I became good friends.
It was also in college that I started to learn about the Orthodox Church. I had a good friend. We would do like book swaps, and she lent me a book by Kyriakos Markides called The Mountain of Silence. And I had been very interested in Eastern religion at the time that I read that book. And so I was very interested to see that there was a more mystical side to my own Christian tradition. And I just found it very easy to relate to what was in that book. And it made Christianity approachable to me in a way that it hadn't felt before.
We'd open the service over there with this rockin' orchestral. We had a 50-piece, 40, 50-piece orchestra, big band. We had 5 trumpets. We had whatever. And we'd open the service over there with a go-get-em kind of, spiritual whatever. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it was irreverent. It wasn't irreverent. Everybody does it differently, but there wasn't that depth of quiet reverence that I was looking for in church.
There's so many Protestant churches now who they try to make themselves more hip and cool for all the young people. They have smoke machines, and they have a guy up there with a guitar, and someone behind on the drums, and it starts to feel just very manufactured. But when you step into an Orthodox church and you hear the chanting, it's the same chanting that they were doing in the Byzantine Empire, over 1,000 years ago, and so it just feels authentic.
As I went through reading the history of the church, which I didn't really know the true history of Christianity, I was amazed at what I was never taught. And as I read and learned about Orthodoxy, I discovered it was the only Christian church for 1,000 years before all this other stuff happened.
Yeah, what really drew me to Orthodoxy was the fact that they don't change, nothing changes. Why does the church have to change for the world? Why isn't the world changing for the church? Christ said, he is the same now, always, and forever, so the church should be the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say there were several things. I don't know that there was one particular thing. There's certainly the sort of slow burn process of just over the years, saying the Jesus prayer and reading the lives of the saints and reading theology and stuff, coming to a place where you sort of cross some invisible line somewhere where you realize I've sort of become Orthodox in my heart.
And Susan, my wife Susan, and I decided to come across the street from the church we were attending across the street and come to Holy Trinity one day. And we decided to come to Holy Week, and watching the reverence and the depth of the spirituality in the Orthodox Church for Easter week and for Holy Week was really impactful to me. It had the gravity, the essence of Christ dying for our sins and rising from the dead, rather than it being about the Easter Bunny and a bunch of other stuff like that. So we began the journey of coming to Orthodoxy. We weren't sure in the beginning, but once I came in this church and sat down, I went, this is really the church I want to die in. Not immediately, but when the time's right, this is the right church for me. And it felt whole, it felt reverent.
So my wife is Rachel. So Rachel and I were chrismated on the Feast of the Dormition in 2018. And I think I could not have become Orthodox without Rachel. I was fully on board intellectually with the theology of the church and so on, but somehow there was some part of me that was afraid to make the jump. And Rachel, I think, took longer to come around to some of the doctrinal stuff, but was much, much more courageous about just stepping forward in faith and just kind of going for it. And that really helped me. So it's definitely something that I could not have done on my own.
Yeah, it was sitting here in church one day after Susan and I started coming here, and having that moment of peace in relationship with God that I hadn't had in any other church. It occurred in liturgy here. It just happened, and I went, okay, this is where I belong.
Yeah, as I just kept coming to liturgies every Sunday, every liturgy felt just as awe-inspiring as the first one I went to. And I just began to feel like, and as I learned in the catechumen class about the apostolic succession, that every leader of the Orthodox Church can trace their succession back to the apostles. The Protestant churches I went to, they could never make that claim. And so just a combination of that church history and just the authentic feel of the liturgy is what made me realize this is the true church founded by Jesus Christ. And that's where I want to. That's what I want to be a part of. I've taken my faith a lot more seriously as an Orthodox Christian than when I was still Protestant, because the Orthodox Church gives so many opportunities throughout the year for self-reflection with all the feasts and the fasts, with Lent. Protestant churches I went to never did Lent. There was never anything like that. And so, yeah, I think I've become a more devout Christian since becoming Orthodox. I've realized the importance of the church in our everyday life and in the life of the world, and how important it is to a society that people maintain those values. And I've grown to appreciate those values in a way that I never did when I was still Protestant.
The stone had been secured with a seal by the Judeans, and a guard of soldiers was watching your immaculate body.
The thing that I love about being Orthodox, I guess, is this sense that there is you can't really plumb the depths. There's always something new to discover in terms of the hymnody in the church, of the theology of the church, and just the experience of coming to liturgy on a regular basis and experiencing those things, I guess. There's a depth of tradition in the church that I feel I'm not going to be able to exhaust. And so so I feel confident about my faith in the sense that, I'm not going to hit the ceiling at some point.
It was finally coming home to a place that I felt I belonged, and that gave me that depth of experience that I needed to get closer to God. And this church gives me a place where I feel more at peace with where that journey is going to go. And it gives me access to a way to find that depth of spiritual experience I'm looking for. I went to Mount Athos for Holy Week a few years ago and spent all of Holy Week on Athos at Fatapeti, which is, for those who don't know, it's one of the monasteries on Mount Athos. And the depth of the reverence and the depth of the spiritual experience there was absolutely amazing. And amazing isn't the right word. It's profound is a better word for it. It gives you the depth of communication with God that I've never felt in any other church before, and it's real, and it's again, the word is profound. And this church gives me that, and I didn't find that anywhere else.